Players do this every single year. The second that we get close to the release of the new Ultimate Team, EA releases the players and their overall ratings. These players get added to various databases, FootWiz, FootBin, you name it. Anything that's out there, they will be included. And that allows players like me and you to start building and planning our very first Ultimate Team. And every single year, I see people make the same mistake over and over again. So in today's video, we're going to be highlighting those mistakes, and hopefully by highlighting, it'll be easier to avoid. But before we do get into the video, I have a message from today's video sponsor, SkyCoach. SkyCoach told me to tell you that on release, they've got you covered. Just like the services they provided with FIFA 23 Ultimate Team with EAFC, you'll still be able to purchase coins so that you can get to the things that you want to do without needing to grind it out. On top of that, they're also offering coaching. So if you're interested, there is a link in the description down below. It's not available just yet. You'll still need to wait until the EAFC release, but on release, and make sure that you use Fnatic at checkout to get yourself a 10% discount. Getting back into today's video, starter teams. It seems like a simple thing to do, just build what you want to build. And yes, certainly you can go and do that. However, you may encounter a few issues. So the first mistake is players go way too specific. This is something that I used to do years ago. It looked amazing on paper to start with a formation and build a 3, 4, 5 team hybrid. And I'm thinking, wow, this is something special. The players on paper look amazing. The chemistry is full 100 chem, and because I'm not using any major leagues, I'm thinking that this is going to be relatively cheap. Now, by the time the game releases, I'm able to build that, and 90% of everything that I thought would happen has happened. It is cheap, it's easy to build, and yes, on paper, it does look amazing. But that's the thing. On paper, after playing a few games, I'm noticing problems. It's not that I'm losing, it's just that there's a few issues that have stood out to me, and if I came up to someone good at this game, I would have been slapped about silly. The issue now is that I'm unable to change anything on the team, because the second I do, unfortunately chemistry would go down. And no matter what I change to, because this team has been built on very specific requirements, we're not really going to be able to have anyone fit in unless I change several players. When you go specific at this point, right at the beginning of the year, this is a problem that you will face. So it's better to go for something broad until you know what is overpowered within game, what you enjoy using, and then start to incorporate those players as part of a team. Mistake number 2, expecting that the formations that were good and overpowered last year will be the same this year. Now, I do want to highlight that every single year there are still some selected formations which always seem to do well. 4-1-2-1-2, 4-4-2, 4-3-3. These type of formations have always been used every single year. These are considered safe bets, but it's still not guaranteed. You can go for something that you had last year that you felt comfortable with, but because of how gameplay has since changed, and on top of that, what was overpowered last year may not be the case this year, it does mean that the exact same formations aren't really going to be the same. It also means that you can't take the exact same custom tactics as what you had last year, immediately throw those in, and think everything is just going to be perfect, because it won't. What you need is a team that is going to be flexible. Your starter team is going to be there for you to test. You want something that you're able to quickly change formation or swap out players if there are any problems. If you're already settling without understanding gameplay, you're going to face many issues. Mistake number 3, choosing the wrong players. Very similar to what we just said about formation, of us not knowing which formation is going to be good and which ones will be bad, we can also say the same with players. Now, of course, there's some players we're looking at their card stats, they could be great, but we also know that that's not always the case. And likewise, there's going to be some players that don't look that great, but they tend up being amazing. One of the hardest positions to actually predict this is goalkeepers. It always seems like when you go for someone high rated like Donnarumma, that's when you finally use them within game, they're awful. But then you can go for someone who's going to be much lower rated, we're talking 80 to 85, and they just seem to save absolutely everything. It's so hard to judge players just on their card stats. Now, yet again, there are some things worth highlighting. Typically, whenever EA introduces new types of mechanics or new types of features, that tends to be what's overpowered. Because what they've had in previous years, the systems, the different processes, the mechanics, they've somewhat balanced them out. But when they add something new, they don't know how players are going to use and abuse it. There are also some stats which have always been good. Typically pace. It's not as good as what it used to be. Used to just be able to do overtop through balls all day long and just have someone pacey like Royce or Muriel just running onto the ball. Nowadays, there's this defender catch up where all of a sudden defenders get a pace boost no matter their overall pace stat, and they do catch up with attackers. But it's still something that you can use to your advantage, and having a player with pace is still going to be better than having someone who's not. But the rest of the card stats, we really do not know. And alongside this, while sticking on to the subject of players, this is where we move on to mistake number 4. Of course, it's pricing. Loads of players overestimate how many coins they're able to get at the beginning of the year. Just because you're able to use a very simple trading method right now within FIFA 23 does not mean that that trading method is going to work at the beginning of EAFC. In fact, it's incredibly unlikely. It is completely different market conditions based on you being able to trade now when there's thousands of cards in game, but a very small amount of players who are playing, compared to a new Ultimate Team where there's a high amount of people playing, but there's just not as many players in game. It becomes very difficult, especially when on top of this, players within desirable leagues on desirable teams with decent stats could be worth tens of thousands of coins, even though right now within FIFA 23, they're worth less than 1,000. There are also some players which are incredibly undervalued. Last year, at the beginning of FIFA 23, players like Erling Haaland, Lewandowski, and also Harry Kane were going anywhere between 30 to 60,000 coins during early access. Absolutely insane. Because Harry Kane and Lewandowski aren't considered to be amazing in terms of comparing them to FIFA stats. Of course, everyone wants that pace, and Lewandowski and Harry Kane didn't have the highest pace ever. Wasn't lowest, but it still wasn't high. Somehow people started to fit Haaland into that category. As time went on, Haaland slowly started to increase. By the time the Ultimate Edition and following this the Standard Edition released, Haaland was worth over 100k. Then players started to realize that the lengthy running type was insanely overpowered. Everyone said to go and get Haaland, and boom, he went up to about 200k. I think even hitting 300k. Now, if you're able to get in quickly to purchase someone like this, that would be amazing. It's unlikely to happen this year with Haaland. But this is also a reason why you shouldn't be pre-planning your starter team, because you can switch things up quite quickly based on market conditions. If you find someone too expensive, doesn't fit into your budget, find someone else, a cheaper version of that type of player. But on the other hand, if you find someone that looks insanely good and is a fraction of the price of what you think they should be, that's when you buy into them. You're not going to do this if you've already got a pre-planned starter team. And finally, the final mistake for this video, and this is more of once the game finally releases, this is what you need to do. You need to be part of various different communities. Follow people on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. There'll be loads of people who are putting out their opinions on certain players. And just because you've built your starter team and you think that they could be overpowered, it still doesn't guarantee anything. Whereas where there's various other creators and people as part of the Ultimate Team community who are posting their opinions, and you see a lot of them talking about a very specific player and how they're amazing, you need to get in on that. If you can be one of the very first that starts noticing these patterns and how someone is talking positively about a player, buy into them, because chances are by the time the Standard Edition releases and the full game's here, if they are truly overpowered, that player will skyrocket, helping you make a pretty decent investment. But specifically for your starter team, you've got a solid player for a fraction of the price compared to everyone else. That barrier to entry has increased, but if you've already got them in your team, hopefully you're already slapping people about silly within online. Overall, if you're over planning and you're going into this way too specific, where you know the formation, the custom tactics, the type of team that you're going to be using, how you're going to blend various different leagues, various different teams, various different nationalities into a hybrid team, you're probably going to be let down on release. This is one of those things where over planning is the issue. One of the best things that you can do is go into this open-minded. On the release of Ultimate Team, don't have a team that you want to play with, have a few players that you really want to use, and then make a decision based on their price on the release. Start with a single league. I normally go with a Premier League team just so it's easy to swap out and replace players if there's an issue, build up your coin balance, and then start to experiment. That is the point in when you can start to understand what team to build, because you've got your own personal feelings and you've also had your own personal preferences tested as you use different players. Plus, on top of that, you're hopefully gathering information from other people within the community. Learn from both of these and you can truly build an amazing starter team. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know the best way to start EAFC, then I highly recommend clicking the next video on screen. That video goes through the full step-by-step guide on what you need to do on release so that you can hit the ground running. So click that video and I'll be over there to guide you through absolutely everything.